Coming up on today's episode of PSN, it's all about blind hockey. Matt Morrow, Executive Director of Canadian Blind Hockey, is here to talk about all the events they have coming up in the near future. Let's get started.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Smyth and Nathan Clement.
Welcome into Parasport Nation. I'm your host, Alex Smyth, and as always, I am joined by co-host Nathan Clement. Nathan, it's great to have you on for another episode.
It's exciting to be here, and I cannot wait to share a conversation with Matt Morrow. I've had the pleasure of meeting him in the past at different Paratough Cups, and just how much he cares about blind hockey and just the passion, and I just cannot wait for people to see that and hear that today.
Yeah, I'm sure his passion is going to leap through the screen and the speakers for our watchers and listeners. Before we get into that conversation, though, there's a bit of news in the Canadian Paralympic front that I want to get your reaction to and a bit more insight in the fact that the Canadian Paralympic Athlete Council elections are currently underway. They're ready. They're open until February 13th. I think what I want to know, and probably a lot of folks at home, what is the true role of the Paralympic Athletes Council, and what are they really in charge of?
What the Athletes Council does and what their role is to speak for the athletes. They are the communication of the athletes, and where we look at sport development in the Paralympic side across the nation, but also looking at issues that are facing the athletes. So a lot of the work, and I've gotten to know a lot of previous Athlete Council members, a lot of the work that they've done is help fight and help push for medal recognitions. They've helped worked on coming up with higher earnings for athletes with their with the AAP, or the carding, as we like to call it, the Athletes Assistance Program. And they do a lot of groundwork, really trying to make sport more accessible, sport better suited for the athletes. So it's not just board of directors, it's not just media companies and other people who aren't athletes making these calls, making these decisions, where they really try to communicate with the athletes and have the athletes' best foot forward or best motions forward, and really trying to lay a foundations where athletes have voices and have experiences that they can share and they can give when things need to improve and when things need to grow.
And the one thing I always appreciate about the different athlete councils is the fact that you are getting people from very different backgrounds, very different sports. You're really trying to get a wide range of voices and representatives from across the Canadian Paralympic movement.
Oh, that's what it is at the end of the day. It's amazing just the wide range of backgrounds that we have in this country. And we're so fortunate to have so many athletes that are rich with their own history, rich with their own diversity, whether you're an athletics runner, a boccia player, a sitting volleyball player, or even a cross-country skier or an alpine skier. There is so much value and so much depth that everyone has and everyone possesses. And as athletes, as people, we live in a massive country, and each region is different. So that's going to bring a unique perspective. And it's so important to have those unique perspectives and those unique upbringings too, because that's how we really make a difference, when you're not just seeing it through your viewpoint alone and really seeing that greater picture and that grander picture. And that's where those differences are made, just by the uniqueness and the diversity of the background and the people.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to the main topic for today's show, Nathan. It's all about blind hockey, the Canadian Blind Hockey Organization. They've been very busy. There's a number of events coming up in the next even few weeks. This weekend, there's a few. We are privileged to be joined by Matt Morrow, the Executive Director with Canadian Blind Hockey. Let's welcome him in now. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always happy to be here.
So there's a lot of exciting events happening for Canada Blind Hockey. Let's start with some that are in the near future. This weekend, there's one taking place, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the alumni. There is an event happening. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it's going to be a big weekend for Canadian Blind Hockey. So, first and foremost, as you mentioned, our great partners at MLSC, the Toronto Maple Leafs, big supporters of blind hockey. And actually today they invited out some of our kids from the Toronto Junior Ice Owls to participate in the Easter Skill Skate. So I think we had about a half dozen kids from the local program get to meet some Toronto Maple Leafs heroes today. And this Sunday at the Prince of Wales rink in Mimico is the Maple Leafs outdoor takeover. So at noon, the Toronto Maple Leafs alumni will be playing a game, and immediately right after, they'll be doing a Canadian Blind Hockey showcase game with members of the alumni sticking around. It's free and open to the public and should just be a great thing for awareness of blind hockey, and actually is kind of historic for us because it's our first ever outdoor game for blind hockey.
Additionally, you have events going on in Winnipeg this weekend. What can people expect there in Manitoba?
Yeah, so again, as I alluded, it's a big weekend because our program director, Luca Demonis, will be in Toronto running the Maple Leafs event, and I myself will be in Winnipeg as we partnered with True North and the Manitoba Moose AHL team. We'll be hosting a Try It blind hockey session. We've got over 20 participants signed up. And this is really the kickoff to the brand new Winnipeg blind hockey program that will have 5 more practices between now and the National Blind Hockey Tournament. So hopefully of that group of 20, maybe half of them want to join the program, and that'll mark our 20th team right across Canada.
And that's got to be exciting. Like, can you talk a bit about the progression that you witnessed through your time with blind hockey, and how these types of events of raising the awareness, getting people involved? I know myself, I've been to a number of events with you, including the one in Calgary with the Flames. Like, what does that do to not only build some awareness around the sport for folks inside and outside the hockey world, but also kind of showcase the capabilities of what blind hockey can be in Canada?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but as you mentioned, it really has grown a long way. When we came together to put, I always look at May of 2010 at the Défi Sportif when we really had our first, meeting of what would Canadian blind hockey become. There were really 4 active clubs in the country. There was Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, and Toronto, and that was it. There's about 50 players. They were all adult players and predominantly male. And over the last 15 years, what we've seen is just the explosion in this sport. We're up to 20 programs right across the country. We've got children and youth division, adult recreational division. We've got the Canadian national team program, which is one of the goals we set out in that founding meeting, that competes regularly against USA. I'm sure we'll get that to in a minute. And we've just seen this incredible growth. And I think that really comes from a couple things. One, it's the quality of the experience. We have such an incredible blind hockey community that once people join the community, they really do feel that it's something special, and they want to stay a part of it and be part of it for a lifetime. But the other thing you mentioned is the awareness piece. It's letting people know, even though you're blind or partially sighted, that hockey is available for you. And I think partnering with high-profile partners, such as, you mentioned the event with the Calgary Flames a few years ago. We've got the Toronto Maple Leafs this weekend, and then the Winnipeg Jets Manitoba Moose franchise. I think that does so much for creating excitement around the sport, creating awareness of the sport. And it really shows not only, the capabilities of Canadians that are blind or partially sighted in the hockey realm, but, one of the things we want to do with blind hockey is to educate and advocate on behalf of all Canadians that are blind and partially sighted, to say, hey, if this group of people can participate in hockey and compete in hockey and succeed in hockey at such a high level, what is it that they can't do? There's obviously ways to integrate them, whether it's into education or into the workforce. And that's really a message that we want to use. And we're just so grateful to all these high profile clubs for creating a bigger platform for us to get the message out.
Sticking with the showcase theme, blind hockey recently took part and partnered with the World Juniors, having the Carnegie Cup lead into the World Juniors experience in Ottawa. What was that like to have the Carnegie Cup with the Mercuries and Aces playing that 3-game series?
Yeah, once again, I think, that's another partnership opportunity. It just shows inclusion of the parasports side with the traditional hockey or able-bodied side. And we're grateful to our partners at Hockey Canada that has again, created a platform for us. The Carnegie Cup was just, it was incredible. It was blind hockey played at the highest level yet. You've got, almost all the players were members of either, current or former members of the Canadian or U.S. national teams. And by drafting tournament teams, the Aces and the Mercuries, they really competed on an even level following, the NHL model or the PWHL, the Dream Gap Tour model, right? So the cool thing about that, and I was saying is, not only were we a part of the World Juniors, like we were down there in the dressing room hallway, we did some, social media integration with members of Canada's junior team. We met, there was the goalie from Germany really wanted to meet the blind hockey goalies because he was blown away by the fact how good they were despite not being able to see the puck. So again, it really sort of created that awareness, but we've seen the sport progress a lot, right? In 2014, it was played really recreationally. We had a lot of players that, had not come from a traditional hockey background. There wasn't really a sense of, a breakout or, roles, responsibilities on the ice, power play, PK, all that. What we saw in Ottawa, I think, was another level of blind hockey. I mean, the power play looked really much like an NHL power play, the way they were zipping that puck around. Again, the PK, they made a box, they stuck with it. And I think if you were new to blind hockey and you came into that rink, you would have thought there's just sort of any sort of high performance hockey game happening. It would have taken you probably quite a few minutes to realize, hey, there's something a little different with that puck, and are those nets a little bit smaller? And but other than that, I mean, hockey is hockey, and they really put on a great show. You can check that all out on both the Canadian Blind Hockey and VHL YouTube channels. And if you want to see some really, really high level blind hockey, I would highly recommend checking out those. And they couldn't have done a better job with the teams. I wasn't really part of the process, so I'm not taking credit here. That was our program director, Luca DeMonis, and the selection committee, which was Doris and Jeff from the United States. But I think one of the teams won game one of the teams won game two. And you'll have to watch game three to see the exciting conclusion and who actually won the Carnegie Cup.
Ooh, I love a good tease there, Matt. I do appreciate that. I'm curious for yourself, what is like the big event or partnership that you would really love to see next for blind hockey? Obviously, you had great success with these partnerships with the different NHL franchises, with the World Juniors. Like, what is the next one, or maybe the biggest one you would love to secure to really help grow the sport?
So that's a really interesting question. Obviously, we think about that a lot. I think in terms of where we hope the sport can go in terms of creating sort of a true international para sport and continuing to pave our pathway to the Paralympics, something in Europe. I think this past May, again, through a partnership with Hockey Canada, we were able to showcase blind hockey at the IPC World Para Hockey Championships, which is sled hockey. For those that don't know, it's rebranded from sled to para. And that was a great opportunity. There was 8 countries there. We had some great conversations with them about starting some events in their country. But you look at sort of, the immense financial barrier that international travel provides. And I think if we could find sort of a really high profile hockey event that was taking place somewhere in Europe, where it'd be really easy for those players that maybe want to learn more about the sport or try the sport could come, I think that would be possibly a game changer for the European side, or even Asia. Asia is really an emerging market in hockey in general. And I think just with the populations that they have, blindness being such a low incidence disability, statistically, we're much more likely to find, significantly more people that are blind or visually impaired in Asia than we are in, say, Sweden or Finland, the more traditional hockey countries that just have, much smaller populations. So I think that's something that's certainly on our radar, and we have been in discussion with our great partners over at ACT Sport and Finnish Blind Hockey, and we're going to be looking to do more with them to try to grow not only blind hockey in Finland, but across Europe and around the world.
I know in years past, you've also held the women's blind hockey games and events too. How's the progress and how's the development going on the women's side of the sport? And is there much integration with the men's game and the women's game?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. We're actually pretty proud of the success that we've had on the girls and women's blind hockey side. When we hosted the first Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament, there were two females out of 45 players. What is that? 3%, 4% of all participants. And at last year's nationals, which was our third girls and women's summit, we were at about 18%, which is in line with traditional hockey. Those are very similar numbers to that Hockey Canada and USA Hockey have across the board. And really would like to even exceed that. I mean, would love if we can get 30, 40, 50% of participants to be girls and women. So what the summit's done is it's created a space for our girls and women players where they can compete sort of on an even playing field. And again, to speak to partnerships, last year we had a great partnership with the PWHL Toronto, which had been rebranded as the Toronto Scepters. And we're in discussions with them to continue supporting the women's blind hockey. And we will have the fourth Girls and Women's Summit this year before Nationals. To the second part of your question, though, in terms of the integration, by and large, most of our girls and women's participants enjoy playing in the co-ed games, and they would prefer to play co-ed to their skill levels. So, Nationals will have 6 divisions this year: children, youth, adult low vision development, adult open, adult select division, the national team selection division. And I guess the girls and women's would be the 6th division in terms of a showcase game. And I expect there to be girls and women's player in all 6 of those divisions.
Do you foresee the pipeline continuing to grow, become more robust? As you talked about the different divisions, do you foresee an expansion to these divisions as more people become aware, more people want to get involved in the sport?
Another very interesting question. I mean, we're almost sold out in some of the divisions, which was sort of unthinkable 10 years ago. The children and youth division, or children's division in particular, will use buzzer hockey so that the different age groups go out at different times, and they don't change on the fly. They change every I think we do 3-minute rotations. And ideally, you want no more than 20, so that you've got 5 on the ice, 5 on the bench from each team. We got 24 at the moment, so it just means somebody's going to have to sit a little bit longer. That's a good problem to have. If we could continue, I don't know about necessarily adding more divisions per se, but more teams to each of those divisions. So the open division will have the majority of the players. That'll be 4 teams. And we'll cap that at 60 skaters and 8 goalies. And we're pretty close to full in that one as well. So I could see, the low vision development division expanding, certainly the youth side, the children's side. And, our goal is that, after the 2025 Canada USA International Series, the next step is to create Team World. So we're going to be actively working with our partners at, Blind Ice Hockey UK, Finnish Blind Hockey, Sweden, all these countries that have these fledgling programs, and we want to bring them together to create a Team World that can compete with Canada, USA in March of 2026. That's our plan of where we want to take the sport next. We're following the model introduced by women's para hockey, and they're well on their way to the pathway to the Paralympics. They've got 3 countries with national teams, which is, I believe, Canada, USA, Great Britain, and then they had 2 regional teams. They had Team Asia and Team Europe compete with them. So if we can start with Canada, USA, and World, and then World could become, say, Europe and Asia, and then eventually within there we can see Team Finland, Team Sweden, Team China, Team Japan. I think we can really make some good inroads into creating the first World Championships, and once again pave our pathway into those Winter Paralympic Games sometime in maybe the 2030s.
It sounds really exciting, just being able to watch from the outside and just seeing the growth and opportunity of travel and just getting out there. And there's a question we love to ask on this show. Is there a favorite food city you've been to through blind hockey?
Favorite food city? That's an interesting. I think I have favorite foods in a lot of different cities. Like if I go to Montreal, I'm going to hit Schwartz's for a smoked beef sandwich. I'm going to make sure that I get a really good poutine. Been fortunate to go to New York City a few times, and a great slice of pizza and some good food in Little Italy. Calgary or Edmonton, you're always going to get a good steak. So I don't know if I have one city in particular that's really blowing me away, but you can always find something great in any city if you look hard enough.
So what are you going to be looking for when you're in Winnipeg for the weekend's events there, Matt?
Well, the interesting thing is we're going to be in Winnipeg for a very brief moment. So we've our two newest Canadian blind hockey programs is the Vancouver Children and Youth Program, which I coach, and then is coordinated by our program coordinator Graham Foxcroft, who's a longtime volunteer and blind hockey player. So Graham and I are actually going to go coach practice, and we're going to leave 5 minutes early so we can ensure that we make our flight. And then we'll be in Winnipeg for a late dinner, an early sleep. We'll go straight to the arena in the morning and then straight to the airport from the rink. So we'll be providing all the participants with some pizza after the skate when we have our meet and greet and our sort of like intro to blind hockey workshop. So I guess, frankly, it'll probably be, it's also supposed to be really cold. So I think our hotel has a restaurant. We're probably not going to want to brave the outdoors. So it'll be whatever the hotel serves, followed by a pizza lunch with all our new blind hockey participants at the rink. That's a good weekend.
That is very fair.
Yeah.
That is very fair, very understandable. We know you are such an incredibly busy guy. You have been working so hard with yourself and the rest of the team to grow this sport, not only domestically, but abroad. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, and we'll be sure to catch up down the road.
Awesome. Well, yeah. And for everybody watching, if you're curious about blind hockey, this Sunday, if you're in the Toronto area, head to the Prince of Wales rink and find all those details. And then again, in the Toronto area, if you want to come to the big one, that's the Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament. There'll be almost 200 players, 6 divisions. That's going to take place March 21 to 23 at the Mattamy Athletic Center. And of course, at that event, they'll be selecting the 2025 Canadian National Blind Hockey team, who will then travel to Montreal to compete against Team USA as part of Défi Sportif from April 25th to 27th. So it's going to be a big finish to the 24-25 blind hockey season. And then, we'll move into summer camp mode and on to the next year.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for promoting blind hockey in Canada.
And that was our conversation with Executive Director of Canadian Blind Hockey, Matt Morrow. Nathan, I'm blown away just how busy the organization and Matt himself stays throughout the season. Literally going from one event, ending coaching a little bit early so he can get on a plane to go to a triad event in Winnipeg, and then hopping right back on that plane to get back. That guy is seriously busy, but it's all in service of a truly great cause.
Oh, it's just incredible. His dedication, his commitment, himself, Matt Morrow, but also the Montes family too, and a lot of the work that they're doing right now to grow it domestically in Canada with the events happening with the Leafs, with the Manitoba Moose, and so much more that's going to be happening in the future. And even that little point that he talked about, and I'd love to get your thoughts on what do you think it would mean to have a team world or have more international players being able to play this game?
Yeah, well, obviously, as he had talked about, the goal is to make it to the Paralympics. In order to do that, you need a level of competition on a global scale. So it obviously makes sense from the development of the sport to get these international regional teams together, get Team Asia, get Team Europe, kind of involved and really lay the foundation, grow the sport. We've seen that happen, and he talked about it with sledge hockey, where you have, para ice hockey, you get the teams in Great Britain and things like that. It's not just Canada and US. I think those are critical to the success and growth of a sport. But I think it's very telling to see that, it's Matt and the DeMontes brothers. They're the ones within the kind of sport leading the charge and really making those connections, building those foundations, not only in Canada, but showing how the other countries, the other regions can do it and do it well. I think that's huge. It's them taking the onus on themselves that we want to see this sport reach the highest level. We're going to do it. We're going to put in the work to make sure it gets done. From your perspective, as an athlete, what does it mean when you see your sport kind of be represented globally, and not just like in one region or like, let's say North America, but like you're literally going up against athletes all over the world. That's got to be a truly exciting thing for you from the athlete standpoint.
It's everything. It is so amazing just to have growth and depth of sport. Coming from swimming originally, swimming's one of those big pinnacle sports like athletics, like wheelchair basketball, where we have that depth, where we have that history to the game going back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond there. And even being in cycling too, which is very much cycling, and like hockey, is a very expensive sport to play. And there's a lot of barriers that can come in financially. But when there's people like Matt, like the DeMontis family, who are making it more accessible, making it inclusive for everyone, it is huge, just because the cost can come down that way. And it can lead to more opportunities where you have more international players and more international audiences seeing it too. And that's the biggest thing, is the more people that get to see it, the more people that want to engage, that want to play, that want to take part. And even just hearing how passionate Matt was talking about the Carnegie Cup, events like that, and just those kinds of showcases, we got to talk about it. We got to cover it on here. But those are the kind of events that are going to show, one, the skill level of the players, but two, also just the passion, the heart. And that's going to bring more and more audiences in, because you need to see the cream of the crop in different sports to realize, okay, these are the best players. It's like our previous conversation earlier in the week with Kai from wheelchair tennis, them talking about how Japan has really become a great spot for wheelchair tennis. It's because you've seen players in the past excel. You've seen players that look like you, that resemble you, really succeed, and that's helped the future generations. And it's like right now with blind hockey, it's, you have so many incredible players with the Canadian team, with the American team, and it's just going to help that sport grow more and more and more. And it's going to lead to that international audiences, where you'll have athletes and players from Finland, from Sweden, from Thailand, from different parts of the world, from Japan, from Korea, that get to see someone like them. And that's going to grow and rise that cream of the crop. And as an athlete, that just gets so exciting, knowing that every single game, every single match that you play, you're going to have to be at the highest of highest levels to even have a shot at winning.
Yeah, and I find it really kind of special, having been able to follow the trajectory of blind hockey since my time with AMI. I've been with the company over 7 years now. I've been to a number of different events. I mentioned in the interview being in Calgary when they did a Triad event with and did a Hockey is for Everyone collaboration with the Calgary Flames, who had current, former players skating around, learning, trying the different skills and connecting with blind hockey players. The buzz that the players had from that, but also the alumni, the Calgary Flames players, what they got out of it. Like, I remember chatting with Matthew Tkachuk and kind of him just like kind of trying to figure out how things worked and being interested. And it's like, this is a whole new style of hockey. And we heard it from Matt as well with the Carnegie Cup, where you had the German national goaltender trying to find out and connect with the goalies for the blind team, just trying to see, how are you so good at this sport when you can't see the puck? And I think it's having that shared connection around hockey is so special. But what they've also done is really fascinating, because they don't just stick to one or two types of events or competitions. They make sure it is a broad swath of opportunities to get the game out there. Yes, you have the national blind hockey competitions in Toronto that are coming up in March. Yes, you have these Triad events with the different professional leagues and big name kind of teams and partners with it. But you also are having competitions at the Défi Sportif, which is a big para-sport competition in Montreal. So it's not just being limited to one or two avenues. They're getting it in as much spaces as possible and getting it across the country and internationally. That really helps raise the awareness, help grow the sport rapidly, because within the last 10, 15 years, now he's talking about, well, we're pretty much sold out in some of these programs and different groups and classifications because we have such interest in it. That's how you grow a sport so successfully. And I can't wait to see in the next 3 to 4 years where they go from here, because I think they're really going to go above and beyond with it, because that international piece is kind of that final stepping stone that they need to reach in order to finally realize a Paralympic dream or an international competition level dream. And I think it's a lot closer than people think.
Oh, 100%. And with that too, and you see it with so many sports, is when you get that base coming in, it's even the work of previous generations of athletes too, where you've had so many people who lay that foundation out, knowing that probably the games won't happen in their time, but the work that they do now is going to lead to that success and going to lead to that future of getting to a Paralympics and getting that opportunity for both the men, but also the women's side too. And that's something we could talk even deeper and longer about, but there's so much happening in the parasports world right now. And a lot of things coming up that we're excited to talk about too. So let's get to the parasport update.
Now, the PSN update.
Get ready for the sounds of snowboard as Lenk welcomes the second leg of the Paris Snowboard Cross World Cup for a back-to-back weekend doubleheader. In Australia, the first Grand Slam has set serve as Canadian Rob Shaw begins his quest to win his first career Grand Slam at the Australian Open. Check back next week to see how Canada did in the snow and sun.
Well, that is it for the PSN update, and it's it for the show. We'll catch you next time. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Parasport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.